Good. Okay, so we're on Lamed Tes Amud Beis, moving towards the bottom of the Amud. We're going to count up from the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines up from the bottom. Or from the wide lines, it's the third sort of narrow, again, the middle size narrow, up to the Gemara of the Chachamim Omer. Let's see if we can find, there it is, the Chachamim Omer. You have that? It's at the bottom, at the end of the line. Okay, so we're talking about Abba Shol, if you recall, and Abba Shol is very demanding, so to speak, with regard to the kavanah that the Yavam has. What motivates him to implement Yibum? And Abba Shol goes very, very far. He gives 3 examples, and I'm sure there are more, of what he considers ki'ilu pogea be'erev, that instead of being Mekayim the mitzvah of Yibum, his intentions are not, his motivations are not, shall I say, all pure, and therefore he is living, he's having a relationship with an erva of Eishes Achiv. The 3 categories that he mentions are L'Shem Noi, L'Shem Ishus, and L'Shem Mama, otherwise known as Davar Ach. And we discussed yesterday the question of whether we should take Abba Shol all the way to the extreme and assume that if he doesn't have Kavanah L'Shem Kiyum Mitzvah of Yibum, then he's literally living with an erva relationship. Or shall we say, no, this is a D'Rabbanan, it's not really an erva. We discussed Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, who says that Abba Shol requires Esei Docha Lo Saseh in order to allow a man to have a relationship with the wife of his brother. And the matir is Dechia, and for Dechia, you need a full-fledged kavanah to upgrade the mitzvah. We called it to, when the thing hits the top, and the bell rings, it's got to be 100%. It's got to be pure l'shem mitzvah. And even if mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana, that's not enough to generate a dechia, to override and trump a lotaseh and apply esei dochalos. So for that we need, even according to Abba Shol, even if you hold mitzvahs einam tzrichas kavana, we need. So today we want to study the Chachamim. Chachamim omrim Yevama yavo oleh mikol makom. We don't care what his intention is. The Torah says Yevama yavo oleh. Let him have a relationship with the Yevama. He writes here, "V'af im hayavam niskaven l'shem noi v'chulei." Other kavanas that Abba Shol had identified. Gamken. So too, even in those kavanos, go ahead with Yibum. Yevama yavo oleh. Now, I don't see any extra words here in the pasuk. Usually, if you want to expand a mitzvah and its application, you see a superfluous word in the pasuk. I don't see any superfluous word here. Yevama yavo oleh. Are the Chacham saying that the Torah should have omitted any word here of these 3 words, Yevama Yavo Aleha? I don't see it. Yevama Aleha, that wouldn't make any sense. Yevama Yavo wouldn't make any sense. Yavo Aleha. So what's the ribui here? But I think the words mikolako, whenever you see it in Drashos Chazal, indicate that if the Torah didn't qualify, then it's unqualified. The Torah doesn't give me any indication whatsoever, argue the Chachamim, that he's got to have the right conditions fulfilled, the right intentions. We have to check off a list. We're going to have, imagine, you fill out a form online. Did you ever have that? Did you ever fill out a form online? If sometimes you go nuts from it. That's what happened to me yesterday. I almost had a nervous breakdown. Don knows what I'm talking about. I tried to fill out a form online. It was page after page after page, 20 pages. And if you miss something, they give you it in red. It's the Adom of the 5 categories of Adom. And they're going to check you off. They're going to say, what motivates you to fulfill Yibum? So you have a checkbox for yes or no or no. So you have to check no. Well, is it mama? You got to check no, it's not mama. Right? Is it l'shem ishus? Because you don't have a wife, so you're desperate. This is the only woman in the world who's willing to marry you. Maybe she's not even willing to marry you, but you can marry her against her will. I don't know. So you wrote no. So you excluded everything. So why do you want to marry this? Because the Torah gave you a mitzvah of Yibum. That's the way Abba Shaul understood the mitzvah. But the Torah says Yevamot Yavo. It doesn't say that you have to check out this list and say, no, this is not my motivation. I'm not doing it for this and for that. Now the Gemara clarifies. We have a price that says Yevamot Yavo mitzvah. And the price is telling us that Yevamot Yavo is not just a maisa, a physical action of intimacy. It's a mitzvah. Shebetchila, Haisa, Olav, Bichlal Heter, V'nesra, Chazra v'Hutra. Well, what is the nature of this mitzvah? This mitzvah is a result, a sum total of A, B, and C. I mean, there's a whole story, there's a history behind this. This woman that Shimon is now being miyabim could have been married to Shimon, but instead Reuven married her. So instead of Heter, which was stage 1, when Reuven married her, she became Esau. And now Reuven dies without children, and now she goes back to her original state of being Heter l'gabi Shimon. So B'tchila, before Reuven married Rachel, Haisa, Olav, B'chal Heter, right? As far as Shimon is concerned, he could have married Rachel. No reason to stop him. Then Nesra. Now Reuven marries her, and Rachel becomes Eishes Ah. She's an heir to Shimon. Now Shimon dies. Chazra v'Hutra. So go Heter, Iser, and Heter. Yachal, I might think Shetachzar le'Tera harishon. Shall we say now that the original erva that existed in stage number 2, when Reuven was alive and he was Mekadesh Rachel, that erva relationship between Rachel and Shimon is completely gone with the death of Reuven? Amud Lomer Yevamot Yavo Leah mitzvah. Yevamot Yavo Leah means I am commanding you as a mitzvah to be miyabim. She is still Eishes Ach. The Torah did not remove her original, when I say original, I mean in stage 2. Originally she was Mut. But in stage 2, as an Eishes Ach, the Torah is not going to remove that erva. I mean, this fits so beautifully with Rabbi Chana that we discussed. That the entire enterprise of Yibum is built on Esei Dochalot Aseh. It's only because you are fulfilling the mitzvah that the Torah allows you to have a relationship with an erva, with Eishes Achim. Your kavanah, your intention for the mitzvah is what removes the erva. Is Montana? This is not the Chachamim that say Yevamot Yavo. Just go ahead and have a relationship with her. She's Muteres. The Torah removed the Yitzer Eishes Ach. There's no erva here. She went back to Etera Rishon. She's back to the state that she was in before Reuven married her. No. This is Abba Shaul. And Abba Shaul says that the erva relationship remains and it cannot be removed. We're going to have to override and trump this relationship, this erva. And how do we do so? Through a mitzvah. Omer Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, Abba Shaul. This brisa was authored by Abba Shaul, one of his talmidim. The hachi kamer. This is what the brisa means to say. Yevamot Yavo Leah and the end of the pasuk says L'kachalo l'isha v'yibma, and the word v'yibma indicates a mitzvah. So in other words, the Chacham put all the emphasis on Yevamot Yavolel. Just have a relationship with her. That's all. But the end of the pasuk says Abishol says v'yibma. V'yibma. What do you mean? You just finished telling me Yevamot Yavolel. So why do you have to add the word v'yibma? Well, what does v'yibma add to Yevamot Yavolel? The only thing it could possibly be adding is the dimension of mitzvah. You mean, what are we going to do with those three words? Why didn't it just say Yevamot Yavolel? I think, if I'm not mistaken, that L'kachalo l'isha is teaching us that she can only marry someone else if she gets a get. Do you follow me? Before the Yevamot Yavolel, she needs chalitza. Does she need chalitza even after Yevamot Yavolel? Well, how could she ever marry someone else? Let's say Shimon was Miyabim, Ruvain's wife, Rachel. How do we get to the situation where Rachel could marry someone else? You have two options, either chalitza or get. I'm assuming that Shimon is still alive. So I would have thought that just like before Yevamot Yavolel, she can only marry someone else. If she gets chalitza, then the same requirement of chalitza should apply even afterwards. So the Torah says, Ulekacha. What does lekacha mean? She's now an Eishes Ish. And she fits into the category of Eishes Ish classic. And that means she'll be muteres only through a get. Chalitza is no longer meaningful. But afterwards, the Torah says, V'yibma. Well, why did the Torah have to add the word v'yibma? Says Abishol mitzvah. It's teaching you what his intention has to be. Why? Shebetchila Vaisa Olav v'Klal Het. Ratza, ask Shimon why he marries Rachel if Reuven didn't marry Rachel. He'll tell you l'shem noi. L'shem issues. His culture. Well, there are no inhibitions. Again, I wouldn't tell you that the best reason to marry a woman is because she's beautiful. I mean, it definitely, is a factor. Or, for example, you marry a woman out of desperation. Maybe you're afraid no one else will agree to marry you. You marry a woman because she's wealthy. That for sure is not a good thing. But the Torah doesn't put stipulations here. Go ahead and marry her. But now what happened? Nesra. Instead of Shimon jumping at the opportunity to marry Rachel, you create a whole, whole story about this. Reuven marries Rachel. You lost that. Now Nebuch Reuven thoughts. Chazar v'hutra. Yachal, I might think, Tachsolet Tera Harishon, and now he could marry her, meaning Shimon can marry Rachel for any of the reasons he could have married her before Reuven married her. Let it be l'shem Noi, let it be l'shem Ishus, let it be l'shem Davar Acher. He could have married her, and the Erva relationship is gone because now Nebuch Reuven died. Talmud Lomer Yevamot Yavolel, and again you have to add the word v'yibma. L'mitzvah. It's only because of l'mitzvah that he has kavanah l'shem mitzvah that we can remove the Iser Erva Veishas Ach. This is Abishol. Welcome to Abishol.
What did the Chachamim say?
And the Chachamim left out the word v'yibma, as if it doesn't exist. I mean, we're going to have to figure out what they do with the word v'yibma. But they're putting all the emphasis on Yevamot Yavolel. You're back to Tera Rishon. I don't need mitzvah. Again, if he has the right kavanas, we'll give him brownie points up in heaven. But we're not dealing with that. We want to know if and when he violates an error. And Abishol says, if he doesn't have the kavanah l'shem mitzvah and the mitzvah element is gone, then the erva is still binding. He must redeem the erva, so to speak, with kavanah l'shem mitzvah, and that's called essay dochalos. In the absence of the essay, it's chazra l'isura harishon. She still remains in the state of Isur. And the Chachamim say, Yevamot, just free love is part of the expression. Carte blanche. There are no strings attached, no ifs, ands, and buts, no conditions. You don't have to fill out the form online. And you have to say no, 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 and I have to come on the same purely the same mitzvah. If you want to add a psychological element here, maybe the Torah means, let's get this marriage on the road here. What do I care what he's motivated by? He wants to become rich. He wants to marry Miss America. What do I care? I want this Yevamot to take place. The Torah has vested interests in having this woman married to the brother of her late husband. That's all the Torah cares about. Yevamot, period. And Abu Shol yells, Shriva Chaim, she's Ashes Achir, she's an Erva. You can't look the other way and close your eyes to the fact that she's an Erva. We need something to be Docha Nisar Erva, to be Mata Nisar Erva. And for that, we need a mitzvah. And not only a mitzvah, but Rabbi Chanan says you need a spitz mitzvah, where he has kavanah lishma, l'shem mitzvah. It's not enough that mitzvah zayin tzrichas kavanah. That's not going to cut the mustard, according to Rebbe Chanan. I can't mention Rebbe Chanan without thinking of the Holocaust. And the man went from America back to Europe to die with his talmidim. It's a chapter in history that I never understood. Rava says, you know what? I'm going to reconcile this brisa with the Chacham. Afilu Temer Rabban. And we don't need a kavanah l'shem mitzvah and bia of Yib. How are you going to interpret the brisa? The mitzvah. Well, what are you doing with the word mitzvah, Rava? I like Rava's impetus here. I like his enterprise, his agenda. He wants to work out the brisa according to the Chachamim. That's a very good thing. That's honorable. But what do you do with the word mitzvah? The word mitzvah doesn't mean that likuva, that it's critical that he must fulfill the mitzvah, otherwise he's violating an Isur Erev of Eishesach. That's not what the word mitzvah means. So what does it mean? Anybody have any ideas? Yevamot yavo le'av mitzvah shebetchila haisa b'chlal heter ratza konsa ena konsa nesra chazra v'hutra yachol shetachzar le'teira harishon ratza eno konsa. Now, the trouble is, when you learn this Gemara, it's a little bit challenging, because what the Gemara does is it takes a little bit of a digression. We're moving towards the punchline to try to see how Rava could reconcile this brisa of lemitzvah with the Shitas Chachamim, and the Gemara takes a break in the middle. But before we get to this kind of digression, this interruption, I would like to suggest the following, and tell me if this could make any sense. Rav is trying to explain the word lemitzvah in this brisa according to the Chacham. The Chacham hold is no strings attached. Yevamot yavo leh. I don't care what his kavan is. He doesn't have the least interest in the mitzvah. He's not going to the mikvah and saying hineni muchanim zuma liyachet kutchabrichu and all that stuff. None of that. He's l'noi davar acher or l'shem yishim. See, don't talk to me about mitzvahs. Not interested in it. So what does the mitzvah mean? Perhaps we can introduce the concept of kidima. Kedima means that what we should try to impress upon this individual is that even if you're not interested in the mitzvah, you do have an option of chalitza. But in a choice situation between a lemitzvah, meaning yibum, without the mitzvah, and chalitza, without yibum, the Torah says we prefer yibum. So the word lemitzvah is a substitute, it's a synonym, a replacement for the word yibum. So it doesn't mean lemitzvah in terms of credit, but it's a mitzvah to try to do yibum instead of chalitza. How do you like that? You don't like it? Okay, that's it's a free country. Look, Don, don't ask me for any favors of me. If you refuse my shot, I get very. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. So again, let's read it inside. Afilu tamer abanon hachikam yevama yavolea mitzvah shebetchila haisa befal het ratza lekonsula ratza ena kons nesra. Nesra always means that his older brother Reuven married her, and then he died. Is chazra v'hutra. Okay, so we have chazra v'hutra. Yachal, I might think tachzor letera harishon, which means ratza lekonsa ratza ena konsa. What is rotz, right? The word yachol introduces a havamina. So what's the havamina now? The havamina is that her status after the death of Reuven is exactly what it was before she got married to Reuven. That's the yachol. Which means that she can marry anyone, even a Kohen, because she's an almana. Which means basically that there's no mitzvah of yibum at all. He has the option of yibum because anyone can marry her, but she doesn't need anything. So this brisa and the yachol is coming to introduce the requirement of chalitza in a situation where he's not interested in the mitzvah, Mr. Yavam, he's not interested in Mai or any of the other motivations, the ulterior motives. He wants to just pack out. And we're going to say, no, you can't pack out because she doesn't go back to Hetera Harisha. There is still a zikas yibum as a result of Reuven's marriage to Rachel, even after Reuven is gone. And you, my friend, Mr. Yovam, my friend Shimon, you've got to deal with this situation. You have to fulfill your responsibility in one of two ways. Either you're miyabim her, or your mitzvah is to give a chalitza to allow her to marry someone else. So now let's see if we can go into the interruption and then come back to Rava's reconciliation of this brisa with Chacham. What does it mean? Ratza eno konsa. There was a havamina here, Yachol Tachzor letera rishon ratza konsa. Ratza eno konsa. What does that mean, eno konsa? The Gemara thinks eno konsa means that she goes back to Hetera Rishon. He decided he's not interested in Yibum, and now she can marry anyone else. So the Gemara asks, well, what kind of happy is this? We know that there's something called Zikas Yibum. Again, the Gemara doesn't quote any psukim, to prove like im lo yachos, the also shara, and then it says v'cholza esnalo meolov, and then she's muteres. But Otherwise, what's the pasuk say? Lotia eishes hamesha chutza lichzar. The Gemara, like right now, the Gemara is very naive. The Gemara is putting all that on the back burners, and the Gemara is saying, "What are you telling me? There's a habamina that Ratza Konsa, Ratza Eina Konsa, he's off the hook. All he has to do is decide whether he wants to be Miyavim or not. And once he decides he's not Miyavim, what, she can get married to someone else? Whatever happened to Zikas Yibum? B'chdi Tepuk? B'chdi meaning without Chalitza, she can go out of this Zika and marry anyone from the Shuk? It can't be. There's something missing in the text of the Brisa. The transmission is faulty. Ella Amo, let's, how would you say, polish up the Brisa. Let's fix it up. Ratza Konsa, Ratza Choletz. What the Havamina here is not that he can decide, I don't want to marry this woman, and that's it. Period. That's where the story ends. Finito. Let her marry anyone she wants. No. What the Brisa meant in the Havamina was that he has two choices. They're two equal choices. Either Konsa or Choletzla. There's no third choice. He can't just pack out and say, I'm out of here. I'm taking a long trip to the Andes. No. You've got two choices, my friend. And they're equal choices. Flip a coin. Decide what's good for you. Given you all your Bahamius, your animalistic tendencies. You want you want to have a relationship with this woman, or no, I'll find another Miss America. I don't need this beautiful woman. And I'll give a chalitza. It's purely a selfish decision. Talmud Loma. Yevamot yavo aleha mitzvah, says Rava. What does the word mitzvah mean in this case? It means that it's not just an equal choice. Flip a coin and make a decision that's all selfishly based on your interests, whether you want Yibum or Chalitza. No. You want Yibum because you're from a Yid, you observe the law of the Torah, and the Torah wants Yibum. And that means that according to Rava, we don't care whether he has kavanah l'shem mitzvah. The word mitzvah is only telling you that it's not just a matter of two equal options, yibum and chalitza, but the word mitzvah means that there's a push, and the Torah the Torah prefers yibum over chalitza. That preference is written in the words Yevamot yavo leah mitzvah. But that's not antithetical to the Chacham. The Chacham can certainly embrace that interpretation. We're not interested in setting up conditions here. Check this off. While you really have the pure kavanah l'shem mitzvah, that's not relevant. But what we want you to know is that Yevamot yavo leah mitzvah, that you should be an observant Jew to try, and if you can, fulfill this great opportunity, this great mitzvah, and be miyavim. Don't just sit back and say, well, the Torah gave me two options. Chalitza is just as good as yibum. No. Chalitza is not as good as yibum. And the Gemara says, Ema Reisha. Now, this brisa that we've been focused on is a Torah's Kohanim, which is the Medrash Halacha on Sefer Vayikra. And the Reisha of this brisa, which until now we haven't been exposed to at all, addresses a whole different question about a Kohen bringing a Korban Mincha. So for those of you who were with me when we had our Akdama to Masechet Menachos, how many months ago that was, I don't know. And there's something called Kmitza in a Mincha. The Kohen does Kmitza. and he lets some of the solas go down. That solas is called Shiorei HaMincha, and there's a mitzvah on the Kohen to eat Shiorei HaMitzvah after Kmitza. And the pasuk says, "Vayikra Vav, Hanoseres Mimenu Yochlu Aaron Uvan." And then the end of that pasuk, the Torah writes, "Matzos te'ochel b'makom kadosh." What do we need this for? The beginning of the pasuk says, "Hanoseres Mimenu Yochlu Aaron Ubanav." Why do you have to tell me matzos te'ochel b'makom kadosh? And the answer is mitzvah. Meaning the Kohen can sit down and, on his back laurels and say, look, the Torah allowed me to eat the Shiorei HaMincha, but I'm out of here. I'm not, I'm busy with a million things. I got other karbanos to take care of. I'm not interested in the schus, the opportunity that the Torah gave me to eat the mincha. I'm not obligated to eat the mincha, so you gave me a schus, you gave me a green light, and you allowed me to eat the mitzvah, to eat the mincha, the Shiorei HaMincha. I don't have to take advantage of that. There are many things I could do and get merits, get extra merits. The Torah gave me many possibilities. I'm not obligated. There's certain chiyuvim. I'm not mechuyev to eat the Shiorei HaMincha. And that's what the extra pasuk says, Te'achel b'makom kadosh. You are mitzvah, you're chayav to eat the Shiorei Mincha, and that's called mitzvah. So what does it mean? And here we're going to take a look at Daf Mem, and then we'll wrap it up. Shevet Chila, before you were magdish the Mincha, all you had was soles, you had refined flour, hoisa, olav, bichlal heter. A Kohen or Yisrael, anyone could eat the flour. It's mutar b'achila. Right? There's no bit of haktorah, there's no bit of kmitza. But now you are magdish it as a korban mincha, nesra. And nesra means it's asura for everyone. Even the Kohanim are not allowed to eat it because they didn't do kmitza yet. Now you went ahead and you did kmitza. You took the komets and you burnt it on the mizbeach haktorah al gabe amaracha chazra v'hutra. Now you're left with the shirayim. Yachal, I might think shetachso let tera richon. Now after the kmitza, which is matir the shiarim, the shirayim go back to the original state that they were before the hukdashah, before the hegdesh, and that means you're allowed to eat it if you decide to eat it. You don't want to eat it, you don't have to eat it. Talmud lo matos te'achal b'chum kadosh. That is a mitzvah. This works out beautifully going to Rav the Omer Hamani Rabbanani. And there's an exact parallel now between the Reisha and the Sefer, the two parts of this price of this Torah's Kohen. And the word mitzvah means the same thing and has the same chiddush in both the Reisha and the Sefer. In the Reisha, the word mitzvah means that you have an obligation to eat the Shiorei HaMitzvah. And in the Sefer also, the Torah is saying that you have an obligation to be Makayim Yibum. Don't think that Yibum and Chalitza are two equal choices. Mitzvah, before the Hegdesh, Haisa, Allah. Bichlal Het. Ratza Ochla, Lo Ratza Loach. Nesra, now after he was Magdashid and before the Kmitza, and Aktorah Gabi Mizbeach, it became Asura. Now he did the Aktorah of the Kometz Mincha, Chazra V'Hutra. Yachal, I might think, Shetachsa L'Teir Rishon, Ratza Ochla, Lo Ratza. Ain't no Ochla, it's just a pure choice. It's a secular, mundane choice. What's best for you? Are you in the mood to eat it, or you're not in the mood to eat it? You had a very good breakfast today, you ate 5 different types of cereals, you're not in the mood to eat the Shiorei HaMincha. Fine. And again, we're going to have the same digression, which Mitzvah will pick up on Yom Rishon, that the Gemara doesn't understand the Havamina that the Kohen is not obligated, and we need a special lima and a special drasha with an extra pasuk that's superfluous to teach me and establish that the Kohen is obligated to eat the shiari mincha. What are you talking about? The Kohen is obligated because the kapara of the korban mincha depends upon the Kohen eating shiari mincha. So what was Yahaba meaning? That it's Ratza, Ochla, no Ratza, lo. But in any event, we see clearly that the extra pasuk that's being derived, that's from which we're deriving the concept of the mitzvah, is telling you that you have two options, but they're not equal options. There's one option that's obligatory. And the parallel to that is the question and the option of Yibum versus Chalitza. And you might think it's Chazal Etera Rishon. There's no need to marry her. There's no mitzvah. No, the Torah is telling me Yevama Yavolel mitzvah, and don't even think about Chalitza right now. Think about Yibum. Whether you have all the kavanas and you're motivated for excellence. We don't care what your motivations are. That's irrelevant. This is the Shitas Chacham. So what Rav has accomplished here is a great accomplishment from the Gemara's perspective. I mean, you and I might not be impressed, but in Talmudic terms, it's a great accomplishment. He was able to reconcile this brisa, which we thought up front was Abba Shol. Who was talking to the brisa? I heard the voice of Abba Shol. No, it can even be reconciled with. Okay, Rabbi, so this is where we'll stop. Here on the top of Daf Mem Amud Aleph, and in Mitzvah Shem, Nether will pick this up on Yom Rishon.